I gotta admit, I almost fell into the trap of misunderstanding the context of the story, the poll, and what Ocasio-Cortez said. Here's the story from Daily Caller. Most Democrats believe Ocasio-Cortez's claim that she said only a sea sponge would believe. There's some truth to this, but it is a bit more complicated. The context. Ocasio-Cortez said on more than one occasion, the world will end in 12 years unless we do something about it. Recently, she backtracked and said that was just dry humor. I don't think it was necessarily dry humor. I think she was being hyperbolic. I think she was just speaking off the cuff, and she was speaking figuratively, but being taken literally, something that Trump experiences all the time. I got to do this, but just for the context of people who might not know, Donald Trump in the debates with Hillary Clinton said she acid washed her server when she wiped the emails. NBC News, I believe it was, fact-checked this and said false. Hillary Clinton did not use a corrosive substance on her server. Seriously, we understood what the man was trying to say. Now, when it comes to Cortez, I gotta admit, because of the news reporting, I actually believed she was being serious. Scott Adams, the Dilbert creator, said he didn't believe she was being serious. And I looked into the actual segment where she was speaking, and it does seem like she's trying to be hyperbolic. Albeit, she is using the hyperbole to boast, to push her position, the Green New Deal, etc. She walked it back, claiming that it was a GOP strategy to fact-check jokes. It's not. The Hill, Real Clear Politics, who else? Washington Post, they all reported this as definitive fact. The problem is the media, okay? But I want to break this down. Because now kind of the narrative that's kind of going around is that Ocasio-Cortez insulted Democrats when she was trying to insult the GOP. She kind of did. Kind of. And we're going to go into that, and I'll explain why. But before we do, check out timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. Monthly donation option, cryptocurrency option. There is a physical address, or just share the video, click the like button, comment below. The engagement really, really does help on YouTube. So let's take a look at the story and try and understand what actually happened. The Daily Caller writes, more than 2/3 of Democrats believe Democratic New York Rep. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's claim the world is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change. Despite the Congresswoman later saying you'd have to have the social intelligence of a sea sponge to take her literally. I think what we're seeing here is a mistake on the Daily Caller's part, misconstruing her hyperbolic statement with what the actual poll says. The poll for Ms. Musin shows that 67% of Democrats think that if we don't make changes within 12 years, there will be irreparable damage to the planet. So here's what I think is happening. You have some people who are taking Cortez literally instead of figuratively, like the world will literally just like blow up, the end is nigh, as opposed to what she may be trying to convey as an urgency in explaining, yes, there is an IPCC report that says we have 12 years to make changes, otherwise there will be irreparable damage to the planet. I would like to point out, however, we've heard this stuff over and over again over the past few decades. Al Gore was like, we've got 10 years to make some changes, and it's been 10 years, it's been longer. Where are the problems, right? A lot of people like to point to extreme weather events and claim that's the case. I ultimately fall on the side of being not an expert, not a scientist, so I'll defer to the IPCC. But we've done some reporting on Subverse. No, the world is not going to end in 12 years. There may be some irreparable damage, but it is seriously not even. It's like, we don't want these problems to happen, but to act like they're world-ending events or contributing to a potential world-ending event is just wrong. It's just wrong. Yes, irreparable damage. There's consistently irreparable damage. We get it. So here's the thing, though. The people polled weren't asked, do you think the world is going to end? They were asked, do you think there will be damage if they don't tackle climate change? So it seems like there's always this partisan jump to try and get Cortez. Like, haha, you claimed only the GOP would fall for this, but Democrats believe it too. But there's some context that needs to go into this. So Cortez said, millennials and people, Gen Z and all these folks that come after us are looking up and we're like, the world is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change, and your biggest issue is how we're going to pay for it, Ocasio-Cortez said during an interview in January. The freshman congresswoman also doubled down on the claim in April, again, warning that there is only 12 years remaining and that for everyone who wants to make a joke about that, you may laugh, but your grandkids will not. So here's some real criticism. You can't say something, then later complain about people making jokes, then claim you were making a joke. So some criticism for Ocasio-Cortez in that regard. But I do think it's unfair to try and claim that Democrats believe the world is going to end, simply because they believe there will be some damage. They go on to add that Ocasio-Cortez later flipped her position in early May, referring to the 12-year deadline as merely dry humor and sarcasm, and asserted that those who took her literally have the social intelligence of a sea sponge. Can I just stop right now? And I actually agree with Ocasio-Cortez 100%. Those that took her literally have the social intelligence of a sea sponge. Now, she's trying to blame the GOP. That I don't agree with. But this part, you're going to love it. Why? It was the media who took her literally. Okay? I went back and I watched through a segment and I was like, I see what she's trying to say. Admittedly, at the time, I fall into a same trap. I'll point this out. Anyone who thinks they're immune to the sway, like the social manipulation, you're wrong. One of the first things like you'll learn when you're dealing with like hacker culture and social engineering and stuff is that everyone is vulnerable. I saw the Washington Post, Real Clear Politics, The Hill, BuzzFeed, The Verge. They all reported a similar line. She said this. And I said, wow, she must have really meant it. Then when I saw people saying, look, she's saying it was a joke, she was being hyperbolic, I'm like, I get it. Look, I think she's definitely pushing the urgency a little too extreme, a little bit to the extreme. But I do think it's fair to point out she was being more hyperbolic and figurative, and the media does the same thing to Trump. That's why I find it hilarious, the treatment she gets. Like, I have criticisms of her and Trump, and if you watch my channels, you know, I've brought them up. I will say this, though, in terms of why do I have, like, I think it's like 2% of my videos are, like, directly about Trump, and, like, 5% might not, the 5 is not even fair. I have more videos about Cortez than Trump, not that many. But it's because, like, for one, the media is just a nonstop anti-Trump fest. I think we all get it, right? Ocasio-Cortez has basically, to a certain extent, a lot of progressive media on her side, and she needs to be criticized when she does dumb things. And she does. A lot. This is not one of those things, however. This is quite literally The Hill and Washington Post and other outlets taking her literally, and I think it's because they've found the Ocasio-Cortez bump. You know, when Trump says the fake news is the enemy of the people, I think he's being hyperbolic. But then I see stories like this and I'm like, listen, man. The media has taken Cortez out of context before, and she's pulled the Trumpian fake news against them as well. I think Trump has said a bunch of gaffes. I think Cortez said a bunch of gaffes. I think Trump and Sarah Sanders have said a bunch of misinformation, as has Cortez. I'm not going to accuse Cortez of being a liar because that implies I understand her intent. It's possible she's just dumb. Same is true for Trump. They track all of these lies from Trump, and I'm like, yeah, maybe he's just wrong, right? So you have Trump supporters who look at Trump and say, I get it. I get what he's trying to say. He was wrong, but you trust him. And if you trust him, you don't think he's a liar. And the people on the left feel the same way about Cortez. I think what we really see is, for one, we shouldn't fall into the tribalism trap of, you know, just hating Cortez for being the other side or hating Trump for being the other side. Criticize them for what they do wrong. Praise them for what they get right. I brought this up in my, I didn't think I should have brought this up. Maybe I didn't. I mentioned in a video that Cortez is criticizing the big tech giants. Yes, please criticize. So I will absolutely give credit where credit is due. Ocasio-Cortez, you want to go after the big tech oligopolies? I will shake your hand. I will be right there and say, let's do something about this. This is a problem. You're going to claim that a $21 trillion accounting error can fund Medicare. I'm going to be like, no, stop, full stop. When you want to do this, you know, hyperbolic 12 years to the end of the world thing, I'll be like, yeah, okay, chill out, right? Because we did report on this. But I think it's fair to point out the media definitely loves to rile everybody up. And the media goes after Cortez in this way. It's similar to what they do to Trump. It's the Ocasio-Cortez bump. They know when they write this, Ocasio-Cortez says the world's going to end, and try and make it seem like she's waving a sign in the air, it makes her look bad. Then what happens is people like me, other people who are taking a critical eye to this far left sect of the Democrats, are sitting there with like, wow, is she crazy? And then what happens? Well, you end up having her come out and say it was dry humor, and I immediately was like, oh, please, come on, you're trying to walk back your claims? But in reality, I think it is fair to point out, and, you know, it really does come down to who you trust in the media. When I see the media reporting all this stuff, I'm like, nah, I don't believe you. But then there are certain people who come up and say, really, take a look at it, and I'm like, oh, okay. I think she was just being hyperbolic. She was trying to exaggerate to make a point. You know, she was trying to be shocking. I don't think she literally thinks the world is going to end. And so what happens then is you get this poll from Rasmussen that says there's 12 years until there's irreparable damage. And the Daily Caller makes it, because I think the Daily Caller is operating off the fact they're taking her literally. Well, you know what? Whether you like her or not is besides the point. I think we would all do well to try and avoid taking people literally, especially if you're someone who watches what the media does to Trump. I think it's important to point out the media is going to do the same thing to Cortez to an extent. She definitely has the progressive activists on her side, which means the media is way more favorable to her than they are to Trump. But it is important to point out, they look, 67% of Democrats believe the U.S. has only 12 years to aggressively fight climate change, or else there will be, quote, disastrous and irreparable damage to the country and the world. That's very different from saying the world is going to end. So by all means, if you think she was being serious and is trying to walk it back, for sure. But it's not, the Democrats don't believe the world is ending. They believe the IPCC. And that I think is fine. So, you know what? I don't want to just be the tribalist bear of opposition to people like the fringe far left. No, I want to make sure we call out the media, and that's kind of more of my shtick. I think the media are full of liars, and I think they'll lie about Cortez, they lie about Mafic Media, they lie about Tulsi Gabbard, they lie about to an extent Andrew Yang. And here's what's really crazy. You get Bernie, Tulsi, and Yang going on Fox News, Pete Buttigieg going on Fox News. That is honorable. And so I'm like, okay. Right? Okay. But then what happens when Tulsi Gabbard goes on CNN? They say, why do you hate America and the world? What happens when Kamala Harris goes on CNN? They say, what's your favorite song? So yeah, I'm not a big media person. And I think, politically, there are some positions that Cortez holds that I agree with. I am no fan of private prisons. I don't know where it stands on the death penalty, but I'm absolutely 100% against the death penalty. And there are some things that I think Trump has done really, really well. The economy is really good. I think it's good sometimes to point out that, Cortez coming out against the big tech giants and the surveillance state, I'm like, yes, please. Yes, please. I will support a politician if they're doing something that's good, and I'll criticize them if they're doing something that's bad. So anyway, I think you get the point. I'll leave it there. Be wary of the media. I try my best. I'm not perfect. As I mentioned, I'm vulnerable to the same fake news as everybody else, even though, I am digging through this. If you think that I am always 100% right, I got a bridge to sell you. I'm not. I can only use the sources that I have, and we know that media has been, I don't know. I'm not going to swear. It's been awful, okay? So I do my best to try and fact check and double check things, and I think context and benefit of the doubt sometimes are a good thing. So I'll leave it there. I got some more segments coming up for you shortly. Stick around, and I will see you soon.